Hi, and welcome to Hiss and Tell, a podcast about cat behavior and all things cat related. I'm your host, Christina Wilson, professional animal behaviorist. Today we're going to be speaking with BriAnne Wills. She is the cat lady photographer and creator of Girls and Their Cats. Stay tuned as we unpack the crazy cat lady stereotype, talk about how BriAnne builds trust with cats, and get her tips on how we can better photograph our own cats. Welcome to Hiss and Tell. Today's guest is BriAnne Wills. She is the cat lady photographer and creator of Girls and Their Cats. Welcome, BriAnne.
Thank you. That was perfect.
Thank you. It only took 500 tries to get it right, but we got there eventually.
We got there.
So full disclosure, BriAnne and I know each other from both of our backgrounds, and actually BriAnne is still doing this in fashion and beauty photography. I left like 6 years ago, went and got my master's, blah, blah, blah. Now here I am doing cat behavior. BriAnne also started Girls and Their Cats, wasn't it your side project? And it has now kind of like blown up into this huge thing where I saw on your website you have all of this press from like, Refinery 29 and HuffPo and Dazed and ABC and Martha Stewart and Marie Claire, like so much amazing press. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you decided to start a side project?
I'd love to. So I moved to New York in 2014, and I didn't know anybody, and I didn't have any work. I was feeling kind of lost. So I decided to start a photo series that I originally thought would be nude women at home. So original, but I was like, through the female gaze, it could be really interesting. And I think it was the first or second woman that I was photographing had a cat, and the cat decided to join the photo shoot. And I was like, wait, this is actually so much more interesting. And then it got me thinking about cat ladies in general and how we're so stigmatized. And there's such a bad stereotype about everyone who is a cat owner is just like automatically labeled a crazy cat lady. And I didn't get it because I was like, all the cat ladies in my life are actually really interesting and really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is how I sort of changed gears. And I thought I would just do a small series of cat ladies. I didn't even have a name for it yet. I was like, I think I posted it on my my fashion Instagram very early on. And I was just like, I'm just looking for girls and their cats to photograph. And I had a pretty good response to that. And I photographed, I think, 20 initially. And then that got picked up by Bored Panda, which is like this really viral website where if anything gets posted on Bored Panda, you're going to get some attention. And then I think it took me a couple years to actually move it over to a different Instagram. And once I did, that gained a lot of traction. And I haven't stopped. So yeah, been going ever since.
What's the percentage of work that you do that is fashion and beauty versus the Girls and Their Cats work?
It's 90% fashion, beauty, portraits, and then 10% on the side, I do the Girls and Their Cats, because now it's evolved into like, I'm a pet photographer. So
right.
I couldn't keep up the series on its own. So I was like, if you guys still want this and you guys still want photos of you and your cats, like I'm available. And
yeah.
then I set packages up so that people could choose like their price range. And so that is now just like a side job, which is great. And I don't know if you can hear my cat. She's scratching on her scratching post right now. It's very loud. So yeah, that is just a side job at this point. I try to just keep it on the weekends. And then, 90% is fashion and beauty and portraits.
All right. Can you tell us a little bit about your history with cats? Like, did you grow up with cats? I know you have cats now. Tell us a little bit about the cats that you have now. Maybe shout out their TikTok if you're trying to grow that. Tell us a little bit just about what's going on with you and the cats in your life.
Okay, yeah. I have never not had a cat in my life. I mean, it's just the cat distribution system. It's always worked in my favor.
Sure.
When I was born, my parents had a cat. I think we had 2 cats growing up. all of them were just like strays on the street that found us. I don't think we ever intentionally set out to adopt. They just showed up. And then there's Liza.
Hi. Oh, look at those ears.
She's my mama's girl.
Oh, gorgeous.
So the two cats that we have now are actually from Ukraine. My husband and I were living over there in 2012, 2013. And they have a pretty bad stray issue. And I was walking home one day from work. This is back when I was teaching English, and stumbled upon, first story is Liza. It was the evening of my birthday. My husband and I were winding down, going to bed a little bit drunk. And
as you do on your birthday.
Yeah. And it was like 4 a.m. and I heard tiny meows and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And I couldn't sleep because that needed to be solved. I needed to figure out. There was an animal in distress and I was not going to let that happen. It turns out after I went outside and walked through my neighborhood, she was like 4 blocks away, stuck up in a tree, tiny little baby kitten.
Oh my gosh.
And
do you have super hearing?
I do. I mean, four meows,
cats.
Yeah, kitten meows, specifically. So I ran home and I tried to get my husband out of his passed out state to go and get this kitten out of a tree, and he did, but these trees are massive and the branches don't start for like 6 feet up. So we had a really hard time trying to climb this tree to get her. And she wasn't coming down because something had scared her. So luckily, this very tall man was walking his dog and he passed us and he was like, "Do you guys need help?" I was like, "Okay." And he hoisted my husband up into the tree. And my husband climbed. And the farther he climbed,
the farther
climbed. She climbed. Yep. And then she ended up on this very thin branch. It snapped. She fell. She fell to the sidewalk. I tried to catch her. I was like prepared. I had my sweatshirt out and I was like, "We got this." We did not. And luckily she had very minor injuries. We were able to get her into the emergency vet. And she just had like a little scrape. Mostly, I mean, they're very bouncy at that age, I guess.
They really are, and it's amazing. I forget. I should look this up and then insert it into the podcast as text later when I edit it. But there's something like if cats fall from like 2 stories or less, it's bad because they can't twist enough, right, to stick the landing. But if it's higher than that, then they're okay because then they have enough time to like rotate around. And if you watch a slow-mo of a cat falling where there's plenty of those where people have done it ethically, and the cat's not going to hurt themselves, you can see them kind of rotating half of their body and then the other half. And so she must have had enough height where she could, especially because she's small, maybe she could rotate herself to be okay.
Whatever it was, she was fine. And I stayed up with her all night while she was crying, probably for her family. I don't know how she got separated, but 2 months later I was walking home from my job and I saw this very pathetic looking tuxedo kitten on the sidewalk that everybody was passing by, and he was crying this like horrible gremlin cry, like unlike anything I've heard. And he was just such a mess. Like his whiskers were all fried and he was just filthy and scared. And I was like, "Yeah, you're coming home with me." So I picked him up and then plopped him in my sweatshirt, brought him home, tried to give him a bath, sent the photo to my husband, was like, "Look what I did." We actually tried to find him a home because we're like, there's no way we can have 2 cats. We were living abroad. It wasn't going to be easy to try to get them back to the States. But Tuck, man, he won us over and there was no way we were giving him up. He's so perfect.
Did you have a hard time getting them into the States? Like what was the like paperwork kind of visa passport situation like?
Yes, they have passports. I should have pulled those out. They're so cute. I mean, they don't have their photos in there, but they are just like photos. No, I should just
You should do that. Yeah. What if you started a side business doing
Passports for pets.
yes, cat passport pictures.
I
Like
mean,
just
it's
for
such a
that would be
cute
so
thing.
funny.
It is really cute. Like they have the little outline drawings of a cat and dog, just information in there about all
Oh,
their latest vaccines because you have to make sure they're
of
up to
course,
date on
yeah.
all of their vaccines before you can bring them in. Luckily, there's no quarantine. So yeah, my husband did all the work because this is kind of an aside, but the revolution started in Ukraine and things were a
Right.
little bit precarious. So I was like, I'm going to go and then we'll figure this out later. So I went back to the States and my husband and the cats stayed in Ukraine until like, I think maybe, I don't know. Chris will correct me, I'm sure, but it's like almost a year later, he was able to bring them here. And so, yeah, they got their passports. He had a friend with him, and they were each able to have one cat on their ticket. And they did really well, surprisingly. They were just scared, but
Right.
yeah, they did really well. And ever
That's
since
awesome.
they've been in this apartment living their spoiled American lives.
Good for them. You know, I've always wondered because before we moved here, my wife and I were thinking about moving to Finland, which is where my family's from. And where we always thought, like, oh, we'll just move back there to be in nature and, you know, we'll move there and retire and just chill out, whatever. And then we were like, how are we going to get 11 cats over there? Like, how would we do it? We'd have to have friends, you know, come on the flight so that everyone just has one cat. And it would just be such a
You would
crazy...
have to just like rent a private plane.
Yeah, and you know we've got that kind of money. We've got PJ for cats money, definitely.
Oh my gosh, 11! Yeah, that would be so. I would be so stressed.
Yes,
oh my gosh,
it would be. It was enough just getting them here from the city, and that was just a 2-hour drive, and we had to rent like a pet mover, you know, professional person who has a van where you can like lock all the carriers up, and you know we played cat music
Oh my
and
gosh.
we did like all this stuff, and
Oh,
that was the whole
wow.
production. And that was just 2-hour drive, so I can't imagine like an 8.5-hour flight, like international. So anyway,
Yeah, no
we
kidding.
didn't do that. We didn't move to Finland. We moved here to Connecticut instead. But
Well,
I think
it worked out.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out for you guys too, and I think that's so wonderful that you adopted those guys and you helped them out. And that
Yeah.
kind of leads me then into my next question, which when I was, you know, doing my deep dive into your girlsandtheircats.com website, that it says that you only photograph rescue / adopted cats, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about why that is.
Yeah. There are a few reasons. Usually with these photo shoots, there's a story accompanying the photos. And the story is about how they rescued their cats or how they adopted their cats. I don't personally think there's a story when you go and buy your cat from a breeder.
Right.
I mean, that's just kind of one and done.
Yeah.
And also, just ethically, I'm really passionate about rescue and adoption, and I don't think it makes sense to, I mean, it sort of feels like if I included animals who were purchased, it feels like I'm promoting that, and I definitely don't want to send that message. I want to encourage people to adopt, and yeah, I just think that's the better way to go. So
No, I totally
just
agree.
aligns with my ethics.
Absolutely, and I think that's an important message to put out there. I think, you know, the whole adopt, don't shop message is out there, but I think it's great that you're actually, you know, putting your money where your mouth is and
Right.
and injecting that into your work. So I think it's nice to have like a little chat about it.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to touch on a little bit what you already brought up, which is the crazy cat stereotype, the crazy cat lady stereotype, which I have definitely experienced in my whole adult life, and maybe you have too, and just kind of talk about like what, since you said that was a catalyst for you starting this project a little bit, like what do you think that is? Where do you think it comes from? You know, and I certainly from a psych perspective have my own ideas of where that comes from, but I would love to hear what you think and how you think this project kind of breaks that down.
Yeah. I think it's probably a way, or it was initially a way for men to control women. Just, I don't know. I mean, I think there's the whole idea about cats having their own autonomy, and you have to really earn their love and respect. And you have to get their consent to touch.
Yes.
And I just feel like that really kind of fits alongside women too. And I think pairing us together is just a fear tactic, maybe.
I agree. And I love that you brought up that I always tell people that cats are amazing teachers of consent, especially to people with children. I think cats are really, really great family pets for children to learn. Good touch, bad touch, like how to ask, touch permission. And I really do think it's, there's something that bothers people about people who do caregiving and people who are, because the crazy cat lady stereotype is like a woman who's alone, who like can't get a man and just has cats and whatever. And I think there's something that's so irksome to some people about someone who's fulfilled and happy alone and solitary and doesn't need someone else to complete them and is maybe also happy in a caregiving role alone, right? There's something in that like is really bothersome to
they
people.
Get very, I think men use this as an insult a lot, incel men, because it's like they're so upset that women would rather clean shit from a litter box than make a life and settle with you.
Right, or clean shit out of their underpants,
Yeah.
And say, having previously been married to a man, that was something that happened. So it just, and I'm not trying to turn this into like a man-hating episode, you're married to a man, I've been married to a man.
Love man.
But I love man.
It's very singular. It's like my husband. That's it.
I love Lamp.
And my dad. Okay.
Yeah. I love many cats who are men. Like many male cats. Yeah. I love many of them. But I just think it's so funny. It's like, I've never heard a woman be like, you're a crazy cat lady, in a serious way. And I just think it's interesting, and it's interesting how the stereotype is like men like dogs, because we have spent thousands of years socializing, domesticating, and breeding dogs to be just like us, right? From a psychology perspective, and to listen to us, to want to do what we say, to really, to be part of our pack and to want to do what we say, and to look at us as the head of their pack. And cats domesticated themselves and have not changed at all from a psychology perspective. And really even from a genetic perspective, they haven't changed at all. And I think for a lot of people that bothers them, that you have to come to a cat and understand what they want. And that tends to be more of a pet that women understand, because that tends to be a woman's job in society anyway, is already trying to understand what everybody else wants. And anyway, I'm going on a little bit of a rant now.
No, it's so interesting though, all of it.
I feel like we could have a whole podcast just about this.
I know.
Anyway, but we'll move on from that. But I do think it's a really interesting topic, and I'm really glad that you're doing this project, because it does really show all the different cool people who have cats and all the different cool stuff that they're doing, and showing them in such an interesting way that you don't have to be that stereotypical crazy New York lady with the big crazy frilly hair and a million plastic shopping bags who goes home to a hoarded house with 14 cats. That doesn't have to be how everybody is. Even if you have 11 cats like me, I'm not covered in.
You have a big house though. I think it works.
It does. But we had 11 cats when we lived in our little apartment as well. So it's just, it was the same amount of cats. It's just the size of the apartment or the house has changed. So we lucked out, and the cats are way happier here. So it's nice.
That's good.
So can you share any memorable moments or stories from your experiences photographing girls and their cats? Is there anything that stands out to you?
Well, I think the most memorable thing is just being able to make a book and going on this little mini tour of 6 different cities, New York City included. And that was really special. It was just really cool to see how cat ladies in different cities live, and in the way that New York, we all have really small apartments, so how do we make that work versus LA? They have huge places, and what are the differences and the similarities? And it was just a really good experience, and I hope I can do it again.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how the book came together? Were you approached by a publishing company? Did you approach somebody? How did that all happen? Because I know as photographers, a dream is to have a book out, and you did it.
Yeah. Well, it had definitely been a goal of mine. I didn't know how to actually achieve it. So I was just posting constantly on the Girls and Their Cats Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was 2016 or 17 that somebody from Chronicle actually reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in doing a book. And I was like, yeah, obviously.
And so then you just went from there and you decided to go on a tour of cities, or had you already shot that stuff?
I hadn't shot it yet. So it was we talked about what would work for a book, how we could make it different than the blog. And I mean, one of the biggest ways was to just include different cities, because I had up until that point only photographed cat ladies in New York City.
Right.
So this, I was the one who pitched that. Just that would be one way that we could make it different. I could go to, and I did go to LA, Portland, San Francisco, Philadelphia, and DC. And then we had like, in addition to the stories and the photos, we had little fun kind of, I guess you would call them listicles, kind of like something BuzzFeed would have done back in the day. Just like cattail language explained, and like how to cat proof your home kind of thing, just to like round it out. And it's actually a pretty great book for a new cat person.
All right. That's good to know. So now our listeners can go out and buy your book. And where can they find it? Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon, and it should be still at Barnes & Noble. And I think pretty much, as long as they're not sold out, it was available everywhere they sell books. So
okay, awesome. How did you go about doing the shoots? Like, did you have any challenges when you were photographing the cats and the girls together? Like, did you have to have a cat wrangler, like somebody like behind you with a toy, or were you able to do it all yourself? Like, how did it happen?
Surprisingly, I did a lot of it on my own.
Wow.
And created
That's
some
amazing.
I created some back pain along the way, because I would have to hold my camera and then hold the cat toy at the same time. And
oh my gosh.
Our cameras are not light.
No.
And they're just like too much upper shoulder back
Seriously.
pain. But if there was somebody else home, I would usually ask them to help out. And I think that makes it so much nicer. But the idea of bringing a cat wrangler with me, I think, would complicate it a little bit, just because there's an extra body in the house, a new person. Mm-hmm. While it would be really helpful, I just don't know how the cats would respond to that. So I kind of just figured it out on my own, and I managed.
That's totally fair, and that was that leads me into another question, which was, how did you introduce yourself to the cat? Because as cat people, we know that often when you go into a house with new cats, the cat's like, absolutely not. Like, I don't know who you are. It's going to take me quite a while to come out if they're not like a very bold personality type. So how did you handle going into the home and getting the cats comfortable with you? And the people, too. The people also had to get comfortable with you. But this is a show about cats, so we're just going to talk about the cat.
Yeah, that's true. So I allow for about an hour time slot. And that entire hour is not for photos. So maybe 30 minutes for photos, but I usually like to sit and chat with the cat lady, get to know them, let the cat get used to my presence. I don't really approach cats. I let them approach me when they want to, and if they don't want to, they don't have to.
Right.
I have my camera bag that has been in every single other cat home with me. It smells like cats, and that usually works in my favor. There's been some times where they're like, oh, hell no. And then they'll hiss at me. But usually they're curious enough and like, why do you smell like so many cats right now? I also have a cat toy that it's just like a little, it's varied over the years, evolved. Right now I'm using just a stick with like a feather and a bell on the end. And that is really intriguing to a lot of cats. So, yeah, I don't know. There have been some times where the cats just didn't want to come out, and it was kind of holding the cat for a few photos and then they're done. And that, sometimes that is just the way it has to go, because you can't like force the cat to sit there if they don't want to sit there. So I've been very lucky. It's worked out I've photographed over 100 400 cat ladies.
Wow.
And I have only had a handful of issues, like where the cats just weren't into it at all.
Have you had any where you just couldn't do the shoot because the cats wouldn't come out at all?
They're back in the day, like probably one of the first 50 cat ladies that I photographed. I think we spent the whole time her following her cat around trying to pick him up for the photo, and it just didn't happen.
Right.
Except for like the last minute, she was finally able to pick him up. I think I got like 2 photos. But ever since then, I don't know. No, I've never had an issue where I haven't been able to get photos of the cats.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I guess it is. I think a lot of people know their cats a little bit.
Fair.
To an extent, like they know, oh, this isn't for us. Like our cat's not going to respond to this. So
they're self-selecting out. That makes sense.
I think so. I would imagine.
I wonder if also if your confidence changed, like at the beginning, you weren't quite as sure of, and you would have to speak to that, but that cats are such great readers of energy, and if you come into a situation and you're not like 100% confident and you're a little bit like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go, the cat's going to be like, well, I'm not participating in this, like, toodaloo. But if you come in really confident and you come in and you're like, I've got this toy and you're going to love it and this is how things go and my bag smells like cats and like you're going to have a good time, you're going to be a star, then the cat's much more likely to be excited and participate.
Yeah, absolutely. 9 years of experience will do that.
Yeah, I think they'll be like, this lady knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
We'll participate. It is funny.
Yeah.
It makes me think of my wife and I were recently on the cover of our very small town's local magazine.
Oh, cute.
So exciting. We live in a town of less than 8,000 people, so eventually everyone is going to be on the cover of this magazine, so it's really not a big deal. But they did send the local photographer, to take pictures of us in the house, and of course they're like, we want all the cats in the pictures. Boy, did the cats not want to be in the pictures, and all of our friends were like, where's any cat? Like, we got one cat to be in one picture, and looking just very like, mm. And that was it, out of all of the cats, because, Steve was no longer with us, so he would have, happily participated, but everyone else was like, absolutely not. But I think it was also because, of course, the photographer came in with, all her stuff and just, was kind of banging around, and there is a way to come in, especially as a photographer, which obviously to not upset cats. And that wasn't kind of done in that way, because of course that's not her job to know that. Mm-hmm. But it was sort of a very loud, boisterous entrance with lots of banging and equipment and setup, and I think that just made the cats even more like, we have no interest in this. We're gonna wait for our Vogue cover. Thanks. We're not gonna be on the cover of this.
They're holding out.
Yeah, we don't want to be on the cover.
I'm a very quiet person by nature, so I don't go in with a loud voice, and I always take off my shoes because my cat personally hates when people wear their shoes in the house.
So do ours. All of our cats hate shoes, and we couldn't figure out why recently they started running away from my wife until we realized she got new house slippers, and they had a hard bottom that it sounded like shoes. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, it's the slippers, because they're just not used to that clackety clack of shoes in the house.
Yeah. No, it's terrifying, I guess. Another thing that I do is I encourage the cat ladies to pick up their favorite cat treats. If they're food motivated, that works really well. If they're not, it is what it is.
Yes, we love a food motivated cat for many things. Posing for photos, but also, working on training, all different kinds of things with cat behavior. It really helps if your cat is food motivated. But again, I'll say one of our cats is not. He is very praise motivated, and he loves a good job, Kevin. And it works so well. Cute. He's so happy when he gets a good job, Kevin. He just looks at you with his giant eyes. He's
sweet.
like, oh, I did a good job, and I'm Kevin. He loves it. So there's always other things you can find to work with, but food is so easy and so instantaneous and will 100% hold a cat there. So I get it. I did want to ask you, are you using, it looks like from the pictures you're using strobes, how are you lighting the stuff? You're not using strobes.
I go in there with very little equipment. I have my on-camera flash, and I usually just bounce it on the ceiling. That's it.
Right. So that's what, it just looks like there's a little fill, right?
Yeah.
But, okay, so I was just going to ask if if you've noticed, do the cats react to that? Do they seem to care? Like,
Yeah, some cats are really into it, and I don't have to use any noisy toy to get them to look at the camera because
right.
I don't know if you've had the Canon, oh gosh, what is it? The Profoto flash?
Yeah, that's
on camera
what I used
flash.
to have, yeah.
Okay. It makes like a little beeping noise before the flash goes off. That gets them to look, and if they're not afraid of the bright flash, then it works really well. But yeah, sometimes it is a little bit too much for them. And I think the funniest thing is like everybody's always like, oh no, my cats love having their photos taken. And I'm like, yeah, but you're probably just using your iPhone.
Right.
And natural light. And even though I don't go in with a lot of equipment, it's just, the flash and the camera.
They're different.
It's still big and loud. So yeah, it usually takes some time to get them warmed up, but...
Do you like let them sniff your camera? How do you get them? Okay.
Yes, I will let them sniff whatever they want to sniff, and if they're afraid of it, I'll like leave it on the ground and move away.
Yeah.
Let them explore it on their own.
We could. Yes, this was a follower question who wanted to know what is the most number of cats that you photographed at one time with their girl.
Yeah, I think. Honestly, usually 3 is the max, but there was one person back in the day I photographed. I think she had 5 at the time. Yeah, so not 11 cats. I was hoping I could photograph you. Your cats.
You can anytime you want. You're welcome to come up here. It's an easy train ride and see if you can wrangle these 11 dorks
be a challenge.
into one picture. I have to say 11 of them are never all together, right? Because they're just spread throughout the house and there's like different cliques of them.
So they don't all get along then?
They do. They all get along, but there's like the bedroom group and then there's the group that hangs out in the kitchen and like trying to get them all together at once would be very difficult. I think the most you can get at one point is like 9.
Well, that's pretty good.
That's the most I've seen together at one point. Because they're also sometimes one is sleeping and sometimes one's pooping. And like they just are all doing different stuff. And you're not going to get all of their attention at once.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. Especially in like a bigger space. So do you have any tips for people trying to photograph their own cats? I know that you said, people are obviously just using their phones and natural light and not coming in with professional gear and professional lighting like you are. But is there anything that you'd recommend for people trying to get just a good picture of their cat?
Yes. I always recommend cleaning their eyes.
Yes.
I think that's like the first step. Let's get that taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then photographing them in front of a big open window or just any open window is ideal because otherwise you're just not going to be able to get a decent photo. And then having something noisy or crinkly that you can hold above or behind the camera to get them to look at you. Catching them when they're just doing something cute on their own, like sleeping or anything, just sitting there, trying not to like stage them. I just don't think that works out ever.
Like putting them in an outfit and putting them in a basket. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely done cat photo shoots where there was like a little bit of staging, like professional photo shoots. And it works, but like not everybody's cat is going to be open to that. So try to catch them in their cute natural state.
I will say, I remember, I always, when I had like litters of kittens from ACC or whatever, and they'd be like in my studio, because that's where I did all the socialization. So they'd be separate from my guys in the apartment. And every once in a while I'd be like, oh, what'd be really cool is I'm just going to like put these kittens in the editorial, and I'd like try to like wrangle kittens and like put them on a model, and it was always such a hellscape. Like every time I would try to wrangle kittens or even bigger cats into doing something that I thought was going to be great, it was the biggest shit show that I've ever seen. It is very tough to get them to do what you want. So yeah, going to them and having them do what they want, I think, is an easier approach than trying to force them into your concept, which is probably
Cats
also really dumb. Yeah. Okay. And then how can people book a session with you? And are you only in the NYC area?
At this time, yes, just because I live in Brooklyn and I'm taking public transportation. So I have my little geographical area that I stick to for now. I mean, eventually maybe it'll open up again, but you can go to my website, girlsandtheircats.com, click on the schedule a shoot thing, read some information about it, and then there's a little form that you can fill out when you're ready.
Okay. And if people want to look at your fashion and beauty work, do you want to shout out your other website?
Yeah, it's BriAnneWills.com. You might have to enter text unless you want me to spell it.
Do you have any plans for another book or any new projects that are cat related?
I have hopes for another book. I think the pandemic really took a lot out of me, and I haven't been that motivated, but I'm getting back into it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I have hopes for another book. I just have to reach out, make it happen.
Yeah.
That's kind of it for projects, other than just managing my new famous TikTok stars over here.
Oh yeah. Well, you're doing a really good job. I mean, your TikTok is doing very well for having only started it a month ago.
I am so impressed.
But that's how
People
it goes.
love Tuck's feet.
People just love cats.
Thanks for watching. Hiss and Tell is a subsidiary of my cat behavior business, Catitude Adjustment, and that's our channel name on YouTube, which is where you've watched this video most likely. If you'd like to engage my services as a cat behaviorist, you can find me at catitude-adjustment.com. Music is generously provided by Cat Beats.